The silence in this apartment is so loud it physically hurts. It's been 48 hours. 48 hours since I last heard Ren's voice, and the quiet he left behind is screaming at me. I keep walking from room to room like a ghost haunting my own life, half expecting to find him reading in his favorite armchair. But he's gone, not just gone for a walk, but erased. His side of the closet is a hollow space of empty hangers that clink together when I shut the door too hard. The worn-out geology textbooks are gone from his nightstand. Even his old acoustic guitar, the one he's had since college, is missing from its stand in the corner. He packed up his entire existence here, quietly and methodically, probably while I was asleep. All he left behind are his keys and my engagement ring, sitting side by side on the coffee table. The diamond looks obscene in the dim light, a cold, glittering monument to my stupidity. He didn't throw it away, he didn't sell it, he just abandoned it, like it was evidence from a crime scene he was walking away from. My phone is a torture device I can't put down. I scroll through my sent messages, a waterfall of pathetic pleading. Ren, please just call me. I'm so sorry it wasn't what it looked like. We can fix this, I know we can. Each one is stamped with that cruel blue read notification. He's seeing them, he's reading my desperation and choosing to let me drown in it. And the worst part is I can't stop replaying that night. The party, the music. That one stupid, idiotic dance. How did we get from there to here? 2 days ago, we were arguing playfully over wedding invitation fonts. Now the only thing in this apartment that still belongs to him is the silence, and I don't know how to make it stop. I met Ren 3 years ago and he was calm. That's the best word for him, and for a long time it was my favorite word. He was a geologist, a man who understood pressure and time in ways I never could. He moved through the world with a quiet confidence that felt like coming home after a lifetime of loud, chaotic parties. With him, there was no drama, no games, no second guessing. Our life was built on a foundation of beautiful, comfortable routines that felt like a secret language only we spoke. There were the long hikes on Saturday mornings, deep in the woods where the air smelled of pine and damp earth, and he'd stop to pick up a piece of quartz, explaining its crystalline structure with a passion that made my heart ache. There were the weeknights spent curled on the couch, watching documentaries about tectonic plates or deep-sea vents, my head on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. He made me feel safe, he made me feel seen in a way that didn't require an audience. But my friends, especially Becca, saw it differently. Becca lives her life like a reality TV show, lurching from one explosive fight to a dramatic makeup with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Tyler. To her, my relationship with Ren was a curiosity, something to be pitied. "Isn't it boring?" she'd ask over brunch, her voice laced with a concern that felt more like judgment. "You guys never fight, that's not healthy, Jade. Passion needs friction." The rest of my social circle, a group of people who mistook chaos for depth, would nod in agreement. They'd trade war stories about screaming matches in public and grand, apology gestures that followed. "Tyler sent a full mariachi band to my office after our last fight," Becca would announce proudly. Then all eyes would turn to me. I'd just sit there with nothing to contribute but a story about how Ren and I spent the weekend planting a vegetable garden. Their lives were cinematic. Mine felt like a gentle, slow-paced indie film that no one wanted to watch. The pressure mounted slowly, insidiously. Their comments started to feel less like observations and more like accusations. "Ren's sweet, but he's like wallpaper," one of them said once, laughing, and the phrase stuck in my head like a splinter. I started seeing my peaceful life through their eyes. Was our stability actually stagnation? Was his quiet nature a sign of indifference? I'd scroll through Instagram after a night out with them, my head buzzing with their toxic glamour. I'd see Becca's stories, a blurry video from a concert, a dramatic selfie with tear-streaked mascara captioned, he loves me not," followed by a picture of a massive bouquet of roses. Then I'd look up and see Ren, sitting in his armchair, quietly reading a book, a small smile on his face, completely at peace. And for the first time, instead of feeling comfort, I felt a pang of panic. A desperate, gnawing fear that I was missing out on life. I should have remembered what he told me. I have to live with the fact that he trusted me with his deepest wound, and I used it as a target. It was late one night, a few months after we got engaged, lying in bed in the dark. He told me about his childhood, about how his mother left his father. His dad was a good man, a librarian, steady, kind, but predictable. His mom had called their life a quiet suffocation before running off with a musician who promised her a world of adventure. Ren was only 10. "She told me dad was boring," he said, his voice so low I could barely hear it over the sound of my own breathing. "She made it sound like the worst crime a person could commit." To just not be exciting enough for someone you love. He rolled over to face me, and even in the darkness, I could feel the weight of that old pain. I just. I never want to make someone feel trapped in a boring life. I remember grabbing his hand, kissing his knuckles, and promising him with every fiber of my being that I wasn't like his mother. I told him his quiet love was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me. And like the biggest fool in the world, I filed that sacred promise away and forgot all about it. The party was at our friend Caleb's apartment, one of those crowded, loud affairs where you have to shout to be heard over the thumping bass of the music. Ren wasn't a huge fan of these scenes. He tolerated them for me, usually finding a quiet corner to nurse a single beer and engage in a deep, meaningful conversation with one or two people he actually knew. He came for me, always for me. I, on the other hand, was in my element, flitting between conversations, soaking in the chaotic energy, and definitely drinking the cheap Prosecco way too fast. Becca found me by the makeshift bar, her eyes gleaming with the kind of mischief that always preceded a bad decision. "Look at him," she said, nodding towards Ren, who was now deep in a conversation about sedimentary layers with another geologist from his firm. "He's literally blending into the wall. You need to go rescue him from himself before he fossilizes." Her words hit the insecure part of my brain that had been festering for months, injecting it with a fresh dose of venom. She wasn't just commenting on Ren, she was commenting on me, on my choice. In that moment, surrounded by the loud, performative fun of my friends, I felt a desperate, almost violent need to prove her wrong. To prove them all wrong, I didn't want to be the girl with the wallpaper fiancé. I wanted to show them that I was still wild, that we were still exciting, that our quiet love had a roaring fire underneath. That's when I saw Ellis. He was one of Ren's colleagues, a good-looking, charismatic guy who was always the life of the party. He had that easy charm that Ren lacked, the kind that drew people to him like moths to a flame. He was on the edge of the dance floor, laughing loudly with a group of people. And a terrible, intoxicating idea bloomed in my head, fueled by Prosecco and a desperate need for validation from people who didn't matter. My internal monologue was a frantic, pathetic justification. "It's just a joke. It'll be funny. Ren will see me being playful and it will shake things up. Everyone will see we're not boring. He'll see that I'm not boring." I walked over to Ellis with a theatrical swagger I didn't feel, a smirk plastered on my face. I grabbed his hand, ignoring his look of surprise, and pulled him towards the center of the room. The song that was playing was one of those slow, grinding pop songs with a heavy, suggestive bass line. "Dance with me," I said, my voice louder than I intended, trying to sound carefree and spontaneous. He grinned, probably thinking it was just a bit of harmless fun, and went with it. And I didn't just dance with him, I performed. I pressed myself against him, my hands sliding from his shoulders down his arms, moving my hips in a way I hadn't since my single college days. It was a blatant, desperate plea for attention, a choreographed spectacle of everything my relationship with Ren wasn't. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched Ren. I had to watch him. His reaction was the whole point. I saw his smile falter as he noticed us. I saw the confusion cloud his features, then the flicker of deep, unmistakable hurt. He stood there holding his half-finished beer, as his fiancée, the woman he was going to marry, ground against his friend in front of everyone we knew. His face, usually so open and kind, became a blank mask. He didn't look angry, he didn't look jealous, he just looked hollowed out. The warmth in his eyes, the warmth I had basked in for 3 years, was extinguished in an instant, replaced by something cold and distant that I had never seen before. He turned away with a slow, deliberate motion, set his bottle down on a nearby table, and walked out of the apartment without a single word, without even a backward glance. In my drunken, self-obsessed haze, I barely registered the finality of it. I thought he was just going to get some air, maybe he was mad and needed to cool off. The music was loud, Becca was giving me a thumbs up from across the room, and for a few stupid, glorious minutes, I felt like the star of the show. I had no idea I was just a clown, performing the final act of my own tragedy. The ride home was a masterclass in silence. Not the comfortable, easy silence we usually shared, but a heavy, suffocating one that filled the car like a toxic gas. The streetlights painted stripes across Ren's face, illuminating a profile that looked like it was carved from stone. He kept his eyes fixed on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I tried to bridge the chasm between us with the only tool I had, denial. "That was fun, right?" I slurred slightly, trying for a light, breezy tone. "Ellis is such a goofball." No response. The only sound was the hum of the engine. "You're not mad, are you?" I pressed on, my voice getting smaller. "It was just a stupid dance, Ren, a joke. I was just trying to liven things up." He finally turned his head to look at me, and the expression in his eyes stopped my breath. It was a look of profound, devastating disappointment. He didn't say a word, he just looked at me for a second, then turned his attention back to the road. That one look was worse than 100 angry words. It was a verdict. I stumbled into the apartment, the alcohol making my head spin, and collapsed into bed. I fell asleep thinking he'd be over it by morning, that we'd have a slightly awkward conversation, and then things would go back to normal. But when I woke up, the sun was streaming through the window and the other side of the bed was cold. I called his name, thinking he was in the shower or making coffee. Silence. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I got up and walked into the living room. That's when I saw it. The empty space where his guitar used to be. I ran to the closet. His jackets, his hiking boots, his neatly folded sweaters, all gone. I checked the bathroom. His toothbrush, his razor, his stupidly expensive face wash I always made fun of him for using vanished. He had packed his life and left while I slept. There was no confrontation, no yelling match, no tearful goodbye. He had simply evaporated. The panic that seized me was primal. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type his name. I called. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I called again, voicemail. I sent a frantic text. Ren, where are you? This isn't funny. It delivered. I sent another, and another. Then I tried calling one last time, and the automated voice informed me that the number I was trying to reach was no longer in service. He had blocked me. He had cut the cord with surgical precision, leaving me completely and utterly alone in the ruins. The first person I called was Becca. I was hyperventilating, choking on sobs, barely able to form a coherent sentence. I needed my best friend. I needed her to tell me this was a crazy overreaction, that Ren would cool down and come back, that everything would be okay. I needed her to validate the stupid choice she had encouraged me to make. Her initial reaction was a shocked, "Oh my God." But as I continued to babble about the empty closet and the blocked number, her tone shifted. The supportive outrage I was expecting never came. Instead, there was a long, uncomfortable pause on the other end of the line. "Well, Jade," she said finally, her voice suddenly cautious. "To be fair, it was pretty intense. I mean, we all saw his face when he left. It was bad." "Bad?" I shrieked. "Becca, you were the one who told me to do something. You said he was wallpaper." "Yeah, I know, but I didn't mean that," she stammered, already distancing herself. "Look, I have to go. Tyler's here. Just give him some space, I guess. He'll probably call you tomorrow." She hung up before I could say another word. The click of the phone felt like a door slamming shut in my face. The person whose approval I had so desperately craved was now treating me like collateral damage in a mess she didn't want to be a part of. I was alone, truly alone. Days bled into a week of pure, unadulterated hell. I barely ate, I couldn't sleep. I spent hours staring at his contact photo on my phone, the one of him smiling on top of a mountain we'd climbed together, before remembering he had blocked me everywhere. In a fit of desperation, I remembered we had a shared cloud drive where we kept documents for the wedding planning and old vacation photos. I logged in, not even knowing what I was looking for, maybe a clue, a sign, anything. My eyes scanned the list of folders, wedding venues, caterers, honeymoon ideas. And then I saw it. A folder I'd never noticed before, simply titled Future. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked on it. It was full of subfolders. One was called House Listings, filled with links to real estate websites, all for small houses with big yards in the quiet suburbs an hour outside the city, the kind of place I'd always dreamed of. Another was called Ring Redesign, containing screenshots of custom settings for my grandmother's diamond, which I had told him I wanted to use for my wedding band. He was planning it as a surprise. Then I saw the last folder, the one that broke me. It was named Proposal Plan B. Inside was a single document. I opened it. It was a meticulously planned itinerary for a trip to the coast, to the exact spot where we had our first real date. There were reservations for a seaside inn, a confirmation for a private dinner on the beach, and notes he'd written to himself. "Remember to pack her favorite blanket," one note read. "Tell her the story about the cormorants." The date on the itinerary was for our anniversary, the weekend after the party. He had been planning to propose to me all over again, in the most romantic way imaginable, because he knew how much I hated our initial, clumsy proposal story. He was listening to me, all this time, in all the ways I thought he wasn't. And as I sat there, staring at the digital ghost of the beautiful future he had been building for us in secret, the weight of what I had done crashed down on me. I hadn't just embarrassed him at a party. I had taken his deepest insecurity, the wound left by his mother, and I had publicly confirmed his worst fear, that he wasn't enough. I had destroyed it all for a cheap laugh and the approval of people who wouldn't even answer my calls now. It's been 3 weeks. The frantic panic has subsided, leaving behind a dull, constant ache in the center of my chest. The apartment feels less like a home and more like a mausoleum. I canceled the caterer. I called the wedding venue. Every conversation was a fresh humiliation, a public announcement of my failure. I don't talk to Becca or any of that group anymore. After a few more awkward, noncommittal phone calls, they just stopped reaching out. I see their glittery, dramatic lives continuing on Instagram, a world I no longer belong to if I ever did. They were the audience for my grand performance, and now that the show is over, they've all gone home. My life has shrunk to the size of my phone screen. I did what every sane person tells you not to do. I created a fake Instagram account, a burner profile with no name and no followers, and now I watch him. It's a sick, compulsive ritual that I can't stop. He hasn't posted much. There are no pictures of him with a new girl, no triumphant posts about his new life. That would almost be easier to bear. Instead, his posts are quiet, detached, and utterly devastating. A week ago, he posted a picture from a field expedition. It was just a close-up of a rock face, showing layers of different colored sediment compressed over millennia. The caption was what killed me. It read, "Some structures, once fractured, can never be restored to their original state." He wasn't talking about geology, he was talking about us. He was writing our epitaph in a language only he and I would fully understand. And so this is my life now. I sit in the quiet apartment he abandoned, surrounded by the ghosts of a future I set on fire, and I refresh his page. Over and over, I stare at pictures of rocks and mountains, searching for clues for a sign of pain that might match my own. But all I see is a man who is quietly, methodically moving on while I am trapped here, a stalker in the digital hell I built for myself, forever looking at the life I broke and can never, ever fix.